Okay. I think we're back again. Smooth Andy, it's taken a little bit, but I think we're back again. Um, Hopefully this will work this time. Guys, we're obviously it's Uncle Phil. Smooth Andy's with me. We're rolling through week one, and we're going to do it kind of hurriedly because it's been challenged. The technical part of it is at first getting everybody synced. Um, but getting back to Baltimore, Kansas City, um, you know, I think for you, you were like, hey, I don't really have a clue how this game's going to go, right? And, for me, it just feels like a bigger game than just, uh, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it does seem like a bigger game than just week one because both teams have something to prove. Baltimore off last year's humiliating playoff loss, where, quite frankly, if they had just run the ball, they had a really good shot at winning. And then Kansas City last year, Andy Reid off a bye. The summer's the biggest bye you're ever going to get, right? And Andy Reid last year had Detroit first game loss, and that was obviously without Chris Jones. I think Travis Kelce was out as well, so you had some you weren't playing at full strength. This year, Kansas City just the opposite, full strength. Andy Reid fully off a bye, off the summer bye, and should be ready for him. You know, I mean, I typically cover the weather as well, but there's really no weather to speak of this entire weekend. Maybe a little bit of rain, but other than that, not really a big deal. So, what do you think about any factors that you'll be looking for this game, or are you just studying this game to see if there's anything that you can pick up for next time?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be data collection for me mostly. But one thing I will say is, as a Chiefs, I kind of hope they lose this game because I'm a big fan of losing the revenge game after you beat a team in the playoffs in the regular season the next year. Then if you meet them in the playoffs again, then you have the revenge factor coming back to the playoff game again. So if you lose this game and maybe Baltimore feels like they've gotten a little bit of a chip off their shoulder and now you have a chip on your shoulder, and if you meet them in the playoffs, now it's your turn. I feel like that motivation would be mitigated, and Baltimore's motivation in this game would be mitigated by a win, and Kansas City would then get some motivation. Not that they need it exactly, but in a way, these kind of games, I prefer to just let the other guys get their win, and they can feel like they've gotten their revenge. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I'm definitely watching to see how sharp everyone looks. How does Kelce look? Is he aging? I don't think he had as good of a year last year as he did the year before, or so he might be on his way out. It might be Taylor Swift's fault. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm going to be looking at this game really hard, especially looking at Kansas City to see, how sharp they are after getting another ring. So
the line on this game is Chiefs by 3 and a total of 46. 3 sounds like Vegas kind of feels like you do, kind of like, hey, what do we, how do we're not really sure how this game goes. We're going to give 3 points to the home team. The total was interesting to me. 46 points. I felt like last year, especially early, was a little bit lower scoring just because the offenses or the defenses were ahead of the offenses because while the offenses didn't play during preseason. Any thoughts about the total on that? Do you see anything there?
I agree. That's exactly my instinct as well, is to think that just about every one of these games, you kind of want to favor a lower scoring game. Question is, how do you pick and choose which one you really go for, or which ones you go for? In your diary, what happened week 1 last year? I seem to remember unders were a big thing for a few weeks starting off the season last year, but I don't remember the exact numbers or even the magnitudes in general. Do you remember some basic idea of it?
Well, in my manly journal, my manly journal,
Hello Kitty journal,
says that it was a little bit lower scoring in week 1. So Wouldn't be surprised if that's the way it went again this year.
Yep.
Interesting enough. Let's go to a next. I mean, I feel like every game here is. I just don't feel like there's any bad games in week one. I mean, I know you're not a big Survivor contest guy. I mean, I'm huge into that. That's big for me. Massive into Survivor contest. Went to Vegas this year. Definitely enrolled in Circuit Survivor again. But I am, I feel like that this is going to be a tough year for. There's so much parity this year. I feel like that the lines are already sharp, and I feel like that people are going to get kicked out of Survivor early this year. And this next game is just another example. I mean, it's what is it? It's the Brazil game. It's Packers, Eagles. Eagles currently favored by 2.5. I mean, that's essentially saying neutral field is 2.5. And again, another high total. I mean, this total looks like, is that 48.5? Looks like
I'm seeing 48.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So 48.5.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that feels really high. Traveling, new environment, new stadium. I know that, when they played in Mexico, there was, a few years ago, there was issues with the turf. Coincidentally, I think that was Kansas City as well. A game that I think it was Kansas City playing it. But anyway, regardless, there's issues with the turf. So who knows how that's going to be in Brazil? I mean, an NFL controls everything very tightly inside the U.S. Maybe they learn from that. Maybe there won't be anything, but certainly will be interested. Do you see any angle on this one as far as teams, coaches being able to get teams prepared for an international game? Anything about that, or obviously the line or the spread or the total, either one. Do you see anything that stands out to you?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind with international games is what people say about Jacksonville, which is kind of an old axiom that people talk about, with Jacksonville always going to London,
right?
Where they tend to win those games, and the theory being that they're so used to that international travel, they probably stay in the same hotel every time they go there. They know the neighborhood a little bit. They're just a little less out of their element than other teams who have to go to London or wherever else. I'm not sure that I can recall. I don't think anybody's ever been to Brazil before in terms of playing a game there. I think this is the first
one.
Yeah. So that's going to be new to everybody. Travel for a game like this, if it were Mexico City or London or anywhere else, Germany, I think that benefits a team who's done it before, but still this is going to be a completely new environment for both teams. So I don't really see that. I think this game really, to me, is, do you believe Philadelphia is just going to be back or not? They got, Vic Fangio and they got Kellen Moore. Is Philadelphia just going to be able to turn the switch again and become that dominant team they were for most of last year and the year before? Or are they still, a house of cards that they looked like at the end of the year last year? That's going to be what I'm really looking for. And I
feel like this line is completely disrespectful to Green Bay.
Yeah.
Philadelphia just imploded the last 6 out of 7 games last year, completely imploded, looked completely disinterested, 30 seconds into the kickoff of a playoff game last year against Tampa Bay. Looked completely disinterested. And now you have these great saviors in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio that were summarily dismissed and gotten rid of because, Justin Herbert actually regressed under Kellen Moore. The only thing wrong with Miami last year is because they gave up so many points. They scored more points than anybody in the league, or top 3 in the league last year. And then, Vic Fangio got run off. I mean, it's like, he's been good. He was good at Denver, but it hasn't really been great since then. And so all of a sudden now, without the world's, potentially greatest center ever in Jason Kelce, and the veteran leadership of Fletcher Cox, big voice in that locker room, and they're gone. And all of a sudden now you're saying, okay, everything's great and Eagles are fixed, and let's go ahead and make them the favorite in a neutral site.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you and I are both at the moment expressing that we're leaning in a certain direction on this game at the moment. I'm going to keep my eye on it. Love to
Yeah.
get three. Love to get three, but
Yeah.
we'll see about that. But I completely agree. I think it's a game where Philadelphia is going to have to show us that they're Philadelphia again, and it'll be very interesting with all the changes you're talking about. I mean, even if the coordinators they hired were, still at the top of their game, you still have to learn a new offense and a new defense if you're the players on both sides of the ball for Philadelphia, and that's
Right.
always a growing thing. How
Right.
vanilla are you going to be early on, just so people don't run the wrong routes and things like that.
Yeah.
I think I really like Green Bay in this game. Just shooting from the hip right now. I'm going to take a harder look at it later, but I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think they really evolved during the year last year in the same way that Philadelphia devolved during the year.
Yep. So feel the same way. But I mean, here's another game. Game number 3. Now we're into the Sunday games. Is that we are in Pittsburgh at Atlanta. And Pittsburgh at Atlanta, again, another game with two teams that are just storylines are just incredibly deep. Falcons, again, Vegas is like, whatever, let's go a 3-point. Let's go through a 3-point spread. And then over under 42, much more reasonable. But again, that total line started off, I think it was around 41. And now it's gone up, or 41.5. And so
no, it
actually
went down. It went from 43 to 42. That's what I'm seeing.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. That makes a lot more sense to me, because
Right.
I'm like, what are you doing? I just, what kind of world are we in? All right. So 3.0 Falcons, this is the revenge game for Arthur Smith. Very first game. I mean, he's coming back to a team that just got through firing him, and
Yeah, but if you're a Pittsburgh Steeler, how much motivation are you going to have to show your offensive coordinator's former team, how wrong they were to fire him or whatever? I mean, it's really about the players, I think, and by all accounts, he's supposed to be a really good guy, and players like him and all that stuff. But I don't know. I mean, this kind of thing happens. These are pros. Guys get released all the time just for money. I think they understand it's a business, and Arthur Smith didn't do his job. So
yeah. So should be an interesting game. Really looking forward to that one. Let's go to the next. Arizona Buffalo. Another line here. I think that again we're looking at teams that that I feel like the lines are being set off of last year, and not off this year. And I think they're trying to suck the public in. And they're saying, yeah, the teams are exactly the same as they were last year. You just go ahead and bet accordingly. And maybe that's the way they do it. Maybe that's what they think, is that the public is just going to just drink that up and say, hey, the teams are just like last year, and they're just going to blow people out this first week. And I think it's really interesting. I think the Cardinals are a really interesting team this year. Look, they're good first line. The biggest question mark with the Cardinals is depth. They just don't have the depth to do that. But as long as they're not injured, they're going to be a good team. And so first of the season, I think they could be frisky. And Bills, I don't think the Bills are as good as they were last year. I just don't think they got better in the offseason. So we'll see. I mean, Kyler back. I think they were 28th in total offense last year when Kyler was out, and they were 10th when Kyler came back. And all they did was get better and add Marvin Harrison Jr. So, should be an interesting game. I know it's at Buffalo, but the 6.5 is tempting to me. I don't know if it's tempting enough for me to take Arizona, because I feel that's a little risky, but I'm warming up to the idea. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I agree. At first blush, I'm looking at open 7.5. It's down to 6.5, 66% on Arizona, according to Don Best. So the line moved the way it's supposed to move when most of the money is on that side as well.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I would really like to be able to get back to that 7.5, and I'd take a flyer on it. Of course, my bets are smaller than yours, so I can be a little less discriminating. But yeah, I still do think that's an interesting game. There's a chance Buffalo might be in at least mild decline. They were 11-6 last year. I think maybe that was already a little bit of a decline because they were at one point like a 13-4 kind of team. So we'll see. But yeah, that's my first instinct. Also, I mean, if this was being played in December, it's a completely different thing because Arizona's players going to play in Buffalo in December, but instead it's probably going to be like 65, 70 degrees or something.
Yeah, they get just a complete benefit of the schedule. They're like, hey, great, we get to leave 100 degrees in Arizona or 115 and get to go play in Buffalo. This is welcome for us.
Yeah.
So I think it's an opportunity for them to do that. What do you think about the total? The total's 48 points, and Arizona and Buffalo both have coaches with defensive backgrounds, and the total is almost 50 points in coaches. I get it. They've got great quarterbacks, franchise quarterbacks. There's a lot of things about Kyler that a lot of people don't like. He plays video games. I don't really care as much because everybody's got their thing and does things, and he's single and doesn't have a family yet. So why not? If that's what he wants to do in his free time, that's how he unwinds, then have at it. But, again, they're great quarterbacks. But, I do wonder why the total feels a little disrespectful of the coaches. Do you think that, or you're just like, no, it's an offensive league, it's not that big of a deal, or
It doesn't strike me as bad as it does you, partially because I don't look at either of these teams as being, I mean, regardless of who the head coach is and what his specialty is, I don't look at either of these defenses and think that's the strength of either team. I think the offenses are both the strengths of both teams. So no, that one doesn't strike me too bad. If I took the under and then watched the game, I'd probably be thinking, Jesus, anybody gonna get a stop here, kind of thing. It might be that kind of game, but I'm not sure. Again, week one is a bit of a difficult thing to assess when, especially me, I didn't watch any preseason because I didn't want to, soil my brain with it. But at the same time, some of it might be relevant. So,
yeah, no doubt. Preseason, we talked about it ad nauseum. It is fool's gold. Do not believe what you see in that. It just, I guess you can look no further than the Chiefs went 0-3 in preseason. That's how much preseason really potentially matters.
Yeah.
The next game is a game that in years past I'd be like, who wants to watch this? It's Tennessee at Chicago. But man, I am glued to the TV. Caleb Williams, really interesting to see. Let's see in live bullets. The really interesting thing to me in watching Hard Knocks was he came out and said, look, I just don't get nervous because the guys were coming up like, hey, you're nervous for your first preseason game? He goes, I don't really get nervous. And that was kind of a cool thing to learn about him because
he cries easily, though.
Do what?
He cries easily, though.
He's a little emotional.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't like that last year. I liked him more in Hard Knocks. I heard somebody say over the summer, I was listening to an analyst, and he was talking about, well, hey, you've got when you have a kid, maybe you've got, an athlete who, a lot of times nowadays, the parents are holding kids back.
Well, everybody, it looks like Uncle Phil has had to shut down and restart in some respect, so we'll just wait a little bit. I wasn't sure if I was the only one seeing the frozen screen, but oh, this is him now. Hey. Oh, okay. Well. No, no, it still says live. Apparently, Philip's power went out. No, you're off the screen entirely. It's just me sitting here with live 2104, 05, 06, 07, etc. So I don't even, there's not even a view of your face or anything.
Yeah, I just say, hey guys, we're gonna cut this short. The power's off. Yeah, sorry about this, but power off, Phil's house, Uncle Phil's house. We're going to we'll see if we have better luck this weekend.
All right, fair enough. Okay, we'll do. Bye. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. Uncle Phil lost power at the house where he was doing his thing, and there's really no way to rectify that if you don't have Wi-Fi or anything else. So we're gonna have to call it a day. We'll pick it up on Sunday. Obviously, we're gonna have a Saturday morning for college and Sunday for pro, as we always do. We'll be doing it on the same platform. We'll hopefully have a little better luck getting set up early, and a little better luck with the power company too. So. Anyway, we'll see you on Saturday morning, I hope. So please join us. And thanks for joining us tonight. Sorry about the problems. Thanks.